Hi everyone, it's Danielle with Northlawn Flower Farm. Well, as always, I hope you're having a wonderful day. And today's video is going to be a little bit different, and it's something that I saw a lot of you guys ask for. And it's to just talk more about my flower farming journey and how I kind of ended up here and the steps that led me to grow in the landscape as you see me growing now. And this really all came about because I think about a week ago, I posted on Instagram and in the community tab that, if you want to grow and sell cut flowers, to not let land, money, or even experience hold you back. Because we can always educate ourselves further. You can always start with a small amount of money and just be smart about it. And you can produce the right flowers, you can grow them correctly, harvest them properly, and sell them. And you don't need acre upon acre upon acre to do that if that is not in fact what is right for you. And so while I'm quite kind of nervous to put myself out there and share a little bit about myself and my life in horticulture publicly, I'm hoping that by doing so, it will maybe just encourage you, because I've talked to a lot of people before YouTube mainly, and some of you over direct messaging about that you work in horticulture and it's become a little bit difficult for you because your hands aren't in the dirt anymore. And I completely sympathize and empathize with you, because I have been in those jobs too, where it's like, this just does not feel right. It's like, the garden is supposed to give us therapy and joy, and all of a sudden I'm managing people, or I'm behind a desk all day designing things, or I'm using inorganic practices that don't make me feel good about this. And, how do we kind of land at where we're supposed to be? I don't know what the answer to that is for everybody else, but maybe, just maybe by sharing my journey, maybe you can just glean one little thing that will encourage you, or maybe make you think about flower farming in a way you haven't thought about before. And, I was listening to the Flower Podcast the other day. And if you don't listen to the Flower Podcast, you should definitely check it out. It's full of so much great information, and the host, Scott, is just absolutely wonderful. But he has on all these different farmers and florists of all different scales and levels. And there was a farmer on there that I was listening to. I think his name was Steven. I'll put his farm in the description box. He has what he considers a micro farm, and where he's landed is that he only sells flowers in the spring. But what he talked about that really stuck with me and kind of pushed me to say, just make this video, put yourself out there, is that he was talking about, we're always talking about sustainability in farming, but what about sustaining the farmer themselves? And that's the struggle that I have always had, since I started growing professionally, is that I was so exhausted half the time. I was so overwhelmed and behind. And when you see some image on social media and then you see what you're able to grow and you think, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that. Well, maybe I won't, because I don't have 10 acres and I don't have a staff of people, and I'm not willing to spray my land. So everyone's journey is different. And if you have the 10 acres and the land and the machinery and the people, that's awesome too. My point here is that, like I said in the community tab, everyone's journey is going to be different. So many things affect the way we grow, how we grow, the scale we grow on, and just the time of life that you might find yourself in. And that's okay. That's good. I just feel like I want to give everybody a hug that's out there growing flowers that feels like they're not doing enough, and just be like, you're doing good. You're doing enough. Do your best to grow the highest quality flowers in the proper manner, stake them, take care of them, grow the right flowers for cutting, harvest them at the right stage, condition them correctly, sell them for a fair and honest price, be honest with your customers, and you're doing good. And it's so funny too, like, I don't want to have a bigger farm. I don't want to have acres and acres. I know what it feels like to be in charge of a very large farm. that is a whole nother animal in itself. And I'll try to touch on that a bit. But anyway, I just hope it's encouraging to hear you're doing good. Keep going with what you have. And, I think almost maybe sometimes we need to put blinders on in a way to social media to see what other people are doing, because it's good to learn from each other, but comparison, that's not good. We can't let ourselves go down that path. Nothing good comes from it, quite frankly. More important to learn from each other and use it in the way that's best for us than to look at photographs and images that either aren't attainable or quite honestly may not be realistic. Because a lot of those pictures you see, those farmers might not be selling cut flowers anymore. They might be selling seed now. They might not be selling cut flowers. They might be selling online courses. Or they might have had just like a freak week where their field was able to bloom out and they weren't able to harvest it. And that's why it looks a certain way. But if we're all doing our job correctly, our fields should never look like those perfect images that you see on Instagram. They should be cut, And that too was kind of my hesitation with YouTube. When I started this year, it was like, well, is anyone going to want to see my garden? Because there's always so much of it missing because I'm so actively cutting it. And so my cut flower garden or my flower farm, it will never look like a landscape garden because it's being cut all the time. But that's the way it should look. And so I want to be sure to show that when I talk about, here's 100 gladiolas and they aren't there anymore, that's because I cut them and sold them. But anyway, let me just share with you my horticultural journey, and hopefully it encourages you or helps you get to know me a little bit better. So basically, I grew up in horticulture and in floral design and judging, specifically because of my grandmother and her background. And I spent so much time with her growing up. She was my babysitter. Many nights I would spend at her house. And basically, my most vivid memories of growing up are being with her and going and doing these gardening, judging shows, volunteering at the nursing home, going to the local schools and teaching floral design. I even have a photograph. I think maybe we were at a fair. I think I was only maybe 10 or 11 years old, and I was teaching vermicomposting. It looks like in the photograph that maybe I was engaging in the activity, but she actually had taught me how to do it before the fair, and then she had me running the stand. So horticulture, I feel like, is kind of my third arm that just developed naturally. But then, of course, as time went on, I did take on formal education as well. So anyway, I grew up, with her and also in the theater. Musical theater, and I was doing that, I met my husband, we were doing that, but we had kids, and it came to the point where we needed to move and find a home of our own instead of just a home that we rented. So we didn't have a ton of money. We always had enough money to pay the bills, but there was never a ton left over, and I always thought, how can we stay in this wonderful area that we found ourselves in that is so expensive to live in, and also have any land that I can grow on? Because I knew I needed to, be growing. I was growing on the land that we were renting, and it's kind of useless because I couldn't take any of it with me. But I just had to grow. Maybe some of you guys feel like that. Maybe you're renting a home and you just feel like you have to grow, and so you're growing on that rented land. Anyway, we found this house, which is a small house. It's just a 2-bedroom home. And it was in complete disarray. It was not in livable conditions. So we had both homes at the same time. And as my husband was fixing up this house, we were living over in the other home. But we bought it for the land because the previous owner of this home, which I think I mentioned once before, but he was a shunned Amish man who was living completely off the land. So he didn't have a job. He just farmed out this land. So on the east side of our property, we have an orchard. Sorry, I think I need to take a drink. Give me 1 second. Okay, so on the east side of our property is an orchard. It's an apple, pear, tart cherry, persimmon, and there actually was a good amount of plum trees too when we moved in, but they were diseased and overcrowding the apples, so I chose to cut the pears down and therefore opening up the area over there by the driveway. but it was a complete jungle when we moved in. It was all overgrown. And then the area that you see now as where I grow my cut flowers and have my garden borders, he was using as full vegetable and bramble production. So my understanding is that there's no like grass out there, you know, and if you notice too, a lot of people, I notice this comment a lot is like, nice gardens, but you need to work on your grass, which I just take that with a grain of salt because I plant clover instead of grass anyway. But there was no grass to begin with when we moved in. So it's basically a overgrown forest. You couldn't even see our house. I'll show you a picture of it on the screen, what our house looks like. You couldn't even see that there was a house here. There was trees everywhere, but we could afford the property. We were like a half acre that we can afford. Sign us up, you know, and we just went about making it into what it is today. And there's still a lot of work to be done, of course. Okay, so let me fast forward a bit. So I guess the first year that we were here, we were just kind of like taking down everything that was overgrown. But in the process of that, I was attempting to garden, at least in a small capacity. And as soon as I started to dig in the soil, I thought, oh my goodness, this is like a gold mine. I mean, whatever this guy was doing to his soil, he was probably putting like leaf mold and all kinds of compost onto this land for who knows how many years. This land is a gold mine and I must grow something on it. And I immediately just wanted to grow flowers. You know, as I told you, that's just how I kind of grew up, you know, going to all these, you know, shows where my grandma would judge them. And I love flowers so much. I mean, I can get emotional about flowers. You know, I just sometimes think of how, you know, God has gifted us with all this beauty and I could just cry. So I thought, I finally have the land to do this. I'm going to do it. And I just hit the ground running. So I have some pictures of this, but that first year I just grew in rows all along the property. So it's nothing like what you see now. And I really wanted to turn a profit immediately. So a friend of ours gave me $50. I really didn't need to invest in any soil amendments or anything because of the soil that I had. And we get plenty of rain here and the land is flat and I don't have any machinery. Anyway, sorry. So I had $50 and I thought, I'm going to attempt to turn this $50 into $5,000 profit. I should tell you too that I own another business, so I do have some business experience. So the first year I only grew zinnias, sunflowers, larkspur, cosmos, and then I used the foliage from the property that was already here to fill in those bouquets. So that was literally all I grew the first year. I did as much succession growing as I could, and I did hit the number that I wanted to hit. And so I thought, this is great. You know, if I can, even if I can just make $5,000 net a year, that will pay our property taxes. And that's really always been my goal with this journey, is that the flowers will pay our property taxes. And I'm not sure I ever told you guys that before. But I think a lot of people, you know, they have ambitions of flower farming being their main job and their main income. And like, that is so awesome. That's so wonderful. Just so you know, that's not where I'm coming from. I'm looking for my flowers to pay for the land that our house sits on. So let's fast forward a little bit more to the point where I get some horticultural jobs. So, right, by this time I have some formal training with Penn State and I go out and I get a job at a nursery, which is supposed to be an organic nursery. And I am not here to bash any nursery. I'm definitely not going to name them by name, but they said they were organic. And they were anything but organic. So after 2 days of working there, I thought, I can't have anything to do with this, and I quit. And I just came back to my own land again. And I thought, all right, I'm just going to keep on growing flowers. You know, I can be organic here. You know, I'm in control of the situation. And so I sold again the same way. I sold in rows. But I always kind of had this feeling, and I didn't know quite how to verbalize it at the time, but now I can look back on it. And what it was that I was taking the land away from my family because I was using all of it. Like there was no room. There was like a little patch of grass for my daughter to run on. But if we wanted to eat outside or have a fire, I mean, impossible. I had taken over the whole backyard with row upon row upon row of flowers. And I couldn't really see that at the time that that's what I had done, but that's what I had done. Anyway, fast forward to the next year, and my brother is getting married in California. And I take a look at the plane tickets for our whole family, and I think, I don't have the money for that. I don't. And I really don't want to have to put it on a credit card. So I thought, all right, I think I'll go out and I'll get another job in horticulture. Because what else can I do? I really can't act theatrically anymore. Being a mom, I need to be here at home. But if I can kind of make the schedule work for me, like work really early in the morning or something, I can go work at another farm or another garden. So I noticed that Longwood Gardens, which I've just taken you guys to, was hiring gardeners. So I went ahead through this very intense interview process, many interviews to be a gardener in their main flower walk. And I got the job, much to my surprise, to be honest with you. I was very surprised to get that job. However, when I got the contract, the job, it didn't pay anything, to be honest with you. Because of how far away Longwood is from where I currently live, it would have basically been like I was working for free at the end of the day. But I was so torn because here it was, kind of this esteemed garden, and they were going to hire me, and I was going to have this experience. And I was like, I can't, like, Lord, is this really what you want me to turn this job down? Like, how can that be? How could I have been offered this job? And in a way, I can't take it. I can't work for free at this point in my life. So I didn't answer them. I didn't really know what to do. So a few days passed, and my husband was looking in the newspaper, and he saw that a farm very close to us was hiring a manager to manage a vegetable farm that would provide produce to 3 of the local restaurants in our area. And I thought, you know, this Longwood thing, I'm just not really sure what to do about it. Let me see what other options are out there. So this time I did my homework before interviewing and I found out how much that job paid, and also that it had a flexible schedule, and it seemed like a better fit. So I went and interviewed, got that job, and I decided to take that job. And I have to tell you, I still didn't feel good about it. It was just such a struggle to be like, what am I supposed to be doing, Lord? Like, I've turned down this job at Longwood to work in a vegetable farm. You know, why do you want me to do that? Do you want me to do that? I felt like I was kind of waiting for an answer and not receiving one. And I think it really took me a couple of years to understand why I got that job, and maybe I'll disclose that at the end of the video. So anyway, so I'm doing the flower farm here, while at the same time planning, planting, managing, harvesting, and taking down over the course of a season that 3,000 square foot vegetable garden. And when I say 3,000 square feet, the garden farm was much bigger than that. That's 3,000 square feet of plantable space. And we pretty much grew every single vegetable and bramble and even small fruit tree that you can grow in this area. And so I think really it was very beneficial for me because there was some things there that I would not normally grow, and I certainly wouldn't grow them on that scale. It forced me to grow those things, and therefore to learn about how to grow those things. And so I'm very thankful for that. But I'll be honest with you, that job was incredibly difficult for me. I came home many nights crying. You know, I was crying because it just I was not happy for some reason, and I didn't know why. My body hurt so bad. You know, that property really should have machinery, and it did not have machinery. And it's really a 2-person property, and it was just me. Anyway, I was just having a really hard time. And, you know, normally where I should have came home and my flower farm been kind of my respite and my therapy from life, it wasn't. It was like such a struggle to just get everything harvested, get it out to the stand. And what happened, especially as that year went on, was I just could not find the energy to harvest all the flowers that I grew. And I had a lot of things go to waste. And I really feel like of all the years that I grew, that was my worst year because there was so much loss that I almost felt like taking the second job wasn't even worth it because I lost so much money here on our own farm. So I decided not to manage that farm again and to really rethink my own property. I have been given this orchard, I have been given the land, but it just something wasn't feeling right. And it was like, how can I make this feel right and still grow and sell flowers? And I don't even know when or how the answer came to me, but I think it was when I was just outside thinking about my grandma and thinking about the love of the garden. And that was it. It was like, wait, I love the garden and I don't have a garden anymore. I have a farm. And, how can I kind of mesh those two to make them work for me? And that's really when I started to explore this concept, which I really had never read about before. It really kind of goes against the norm in farming to grow cut flowers in the landscape. But I just thought, I think I need to try something else. And maybe this is the answer. So I started to kind of carve out the garden beds that you see now. I was planting all the same things, but instead of growing as row crops, I was doing long drifts of the same things, still thinking about how to properly grow them, still, doing all the necessary staking and supporting necessary to grow good cut flowers. But all of a sudden, I had a pathway to a backyard with grass. I thought, okay, raised beds. That will still look a little bit more like a garden, and I can grow cut flowers in all of them. I can still support them, I can still use floral netting, I can still corral, but it will look a little less like row crop farming in my backyard. And so what's kind of developed is what you see now. And I really wish that I would have had more. I don't have any video of this process. I have a couple pictures, but that's kind of really how I landed as a flower farmer, as what you see now on YouTube, as growing in the landscape. And I think it has pluses and minuses for both. If I had, say, a whole acre where I could do the garden on half an acre and then the flower farm on the other half acre, I would still grow in rows. It is actually easier to grow in rows. I could say that after 6 years of experience here and on other farms, row cropping is easier for many reasons, but it didn't bring me joy. And so why do something out there in the garden that doesn't bring us joy? And so that's kind of just how I landed on this flower farming journey, year 6. And I've been gardening for a lot longer than 6 years. It's just selling, becoming a business for 6 years. So I guess that's my journey, guys. And I don't know if I really have any advice or wisdom to impart to you, but I know sometimes it's helpful, especially like I say, I love listening to the flower podcast, just listening to different flower farmers' journeys. And I just think it's so, so important that we're all here for each other, that we're a respectful and kind community of people that are willing to build each other up. And why am I here on YouTube? I think it was really just coming from that place of, I wish I could have seen somebody harvest this stuff. One question I see all the time is did I take some of those online flower farming classes? Well, 6 years ago when I started, that was not a thing, at least not a thing that I was aware of. All of these online courses that you see now didn't even exist. So I basically had The Flower Farmer by Lynn Basinski, and then, knowledge from a horticultural aspect from Penn State, and then just a lot of other books that I read, and a lot of trial and error. And let's face it, I'm still going through a lot of trial and error. That's what growing is, always learning, always growing. You'll never know it all, and nature will always tell you that. As a matter of fact, one thing I left out about that year that I managed the vegetable farm is that my husband and I were at Longwood Gardens on a date. He hadn't really seen the farm yet, and it was finally looking really, really good. And the day before, a hailstorm had gone through our area, but it didn't hit our home. Well, we went to my vegetable farm later that day. It was completely decimated, and a tree right next to my farm there had fallen into my garden. And so basically I had to start so many rows all over again. So, you know, there's so many things that are just out of our control. You just kind of have to roll with it, not get too devastated over it, and learn. And now when these kind of things happen, I'm less devastated. It's more like I almost anticipate and expect them to happen. But anyway, I think I go on too many tangents here, and I just hope that on some level that this video is helpful and encouraging to you. And if you ever need somebody to vent to, if you're in a horticultural job that's not making you happy, if you find that you have lost the therapeutic aspect of gardening, I don't know if I have the answer for you, but I'm certainly here for you to empathize with that. And I hope that we can just all find that joy in the garden again, all in our own ways. So guys, I think that brings me to the end of the video. As I say, really pretty scared to put this out there, but it's the truth. It's the truth of my journey and the truth of why I am who I am and why I grow the way I grow. So I want to wish you all a wonderful day, and of course, until next time, happy gardening. Bye!